Hey, this is Anette Talie from Talie Investments. If you want to learn how to use your small axe to build an empire, you should be listening to the Small Axe podcast with my good friend Nico.
Hey guys, it's your boy Nico here from the Small Axe Podcast. I want to show you how to use your small axe to build a lasting empire. You see, not everybody begins their investing career with millions of dollars, a huge network of investors, or the knowledge necessary to become successful in this space, and that's okay. What I focus on here on this podcast is helping you hone your skills, sharpen your tools to become the best investor that you can be. Now, I want you to sit back, relax, and enjoy this show. If you have any questions or you want to reach out to me or the guest, feel free to do so. Love you guys. All right, Small Axe community, welcome back to another episode. And today I'm hanging out with a good old friend of mine, a partner of mine on an old deal that we already sold and went full cycle on. She is a killer. She's a stud. She's working really hard down in Florida and full-time real estate. I can't wait to get her on. Her name is Anette Talie. Anette, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nico. It's such a pleasure to be here with you. Like you said, we were partners on 194 units in Ohio that went full cycle, and that was an amazing experience to do it with you.
Yeah, I agree. I learned so much from you and I learned so much about you. And I'm really happy to have you kind of share your story. Maybe you can talk for a few minutes about your journey and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So I was born and raised in Lima, Peru, and I moved to the US when I was 20 years old. I went to architectural school here. That's where I met my husband. And around 2008, this little thing happened where like we almost lost our jobs. Actually, my company where I used to work in architecture basically went from 50 people to 25 employees, and my husband company, which he's also an architect, went from, I think they were 10 people and they eventually closed. So our, two household income went to one, and we were affected by it. Right? Like we had just bought a condo, we had all these expenses, and all of a sudden our life changed. And so through that experience, we realized that we couldn't depend just on our jobs, and we started to look for another source of income. And we went through multiple business ideas, and we always came back to real estate. From one way or another, we always came back to real estate. And looking back now, and I didn't realize it then, my family has owned real estate forever. My grandma had commercial real estate. She had stores that she rented. And my stepfather also, he owned real estate. He was a lawyer, but he also owned real estate, and most of the time he wasn't working. And what now that I look back at this, I'm like, okay, this is why real estate was kind of in my blood, but I just never thought of it until that moment when I realized my life was changing because I depended on somebody else and not myself. So, when we started, we just bought a duplex. We decided to go straight to multifamily. And we just wanted to have like a retirement for our kids, like having this property to pay for their schooling for college if they decided to go to college. And then we started to, grow from that point.
Awesome, Annette. You have such a cool story, and it's going to really resonate with a lot of people. And honestly, I want to say thank you for inspiring people like women, like my daughter, who's going to grow up and hopefully be inspired by people like you. So thank you for that. Let's talk a little bit about some of the deals that you've done. You could start with some of the early ones. It's okay, or just jump around. And you're in Florida, correct?
I am in Florida. It is a challenging market. The prices are high. So I'll start with my first one just because, the first deal is always a hard one. And we saved money and saved money. And when we started looking, we only had $40,000 to invest. And at that time, we were coming out of the recession, so you could find property for 40,000, but they were like these small houses, wood construction, and we could never find something that we were happy with. And also because I think it was the first one, we were scared. And as we kept looking and looking, we kept saving money, and it took us almost a year to buy that first property. And at the end, we ended up buying it cash. It was 100,000, a duplex. Like I said, we wanted two sides because we initially thought if one side that didn't pay rent, at least we had the other side, versus going with single family where your income is gone if they stop paying rent. So to us, going to multifamily directly was more secure in real estate, in between the, the real estate spectrum. So we bought that duplex and we just sat on it. Like we didn't do much. We just bought it, started renting it, and then we were like, okay, we're good. And, then I had my son, because we bought this with the intention this is going to be the college education for my daughter. And then we had our son and we're like, okay, let's buy another one for him so that college education is done, because we investigated all the educational plans and it was so expensive. Like it didn't make sense. So we bought the second duplex. I think we saved money and we paid for the down payment with our savings, and then we financed the rest. And then I kind of like got this itch, like I want to buy more. And so that's when I started getting more into real estate and trying to investigate how to get money. The third one was another duplex that we bought with a line of credit. So we got a HELOC on our home. And then with that money, we bought the third property. And then, as time went on, I started buying bigger stuff like 6 unit, 8 unit, 9 unit, 13 unit. So it just progressed from that. But that first property was the hard one. Like it took us an entire year to find it and to finally pull the plug and buy it. Uh, but just to give you an idea of how real estate has so much power, is that after the three duplexes, I ran out of money. Like I had already a line of credit, I didn't have any money, I didn't know how to buy more. And I'm like, okay, how about I refinance that first property I bought cash for 100,000, and I was looking at a 6 unit at the time. And so when we refinanced that first property, we ended up taking out 150,000. So we bought it for 100 and we took out 150,000. We still own the property. We still were collecting rents and cash flowing. And then we took that money and we bought a 6 unit. So we use it as the down payment for the 6 unit. So that shows you the power, the compounding power of real estate. We put 100, took out even more, bought a 6 unit, and it's been 5 years from that 5 unit, so I'm getting ready right now to refinance that 5 unit. And I think we bought it at them for around 680,000. And so we are gonna probably, I think right now it's probably worth about 1 million. So we're gonna be able to obviously take all our cash out of it and then recycle that and buy another property.
Oh, and it's so powerful. And when you do a refi, there's no capital gains tax, right? So, which is another thing. So some people say, well, why don't you just sell it and take all the money, because you're going to pay a lot of taxes, where you could just pull out money through a refi, or, even like you did with a HELOC, and not have to pay taxes on it. So wonderful.
Absolutely. Yeah, a refinance is free money.
It is. Okay, Annette, who do you typically work with?
In terms of
Like your
partners, or
deals?
in terms of...
Yeah, partners.
So, I initially worked, all the deals by myself and in Florida. Then, we ended up doing this syndication in Ohio, which was a great, uh, turnaround. We ended up selling it faster than we thought. Um, but throughout that process, I realized that I like to be I like to invest where I am, where I can drive. So I've been, since working more in Florida exclusively, and I buy property all the way to 3 hours away from me where I can drive and it's not so far. Because I do also self-manage. So all my properties that I buy, I manage them as well. So I like to be able, if there is any problems, that I like to be able to drive and I don't have to fly. And also, um, in Florida, we have a lot of appreciation. So I love that not only I make sure that my property will cash flow, but I get the bonus of depreciation and appreciation. So um, that's why I decided to focus in Florida. And in the last few deals, I've been doing a lot of seller financing, which is awesome. I think it's a great market right now to go with seller financing, because sellers want top dollar. They don't want to lose money on commissions. And I think it's just there's a lot of people that want to just retire and sell the property, and they don't want to deal with brokers. And in some properties where we are getting financing, I'm just partnering up with other investors. Usually, I like to do small transactions where I have only one or two partners. I'm focusing this 2024 on buying between 10 and 50 units. Um, when I started, I was buying duplexes, and then I started buying 5 and 6, and then I moved to like the 12s. So I'm trying to continue the growth. I like the small growth, and going from smaller properties to larger properties. So that's what I've been doing lately.
Annette, do you self-manage your properties?
I do. So all the properties that I own myself or with partners, I am the property manager.
Is that a lot of work, or is it worth it? Do you like it?
It is a lot of work. I'm not gonna lie. When I went, I think up to 30 units, I was self-managing and doing it all by myself. But then that year, I think it was 2021 or 2022, I went from 30 to 60, and it was a big jump, and everything was just too much. So that's when I had to kind of organize myself better. I ended up quitting my job. I hired somebody to help me. So I set up more of like a property management company versus before I was just managing it with my phone, and like I would talk to all the tenants and I was the only point of contact. Now the goal is to go everything through my assistant, and then whenever she has questions, then she will contact me. Otherwise, I wasn't able to do anything else but manage when I went from 30 to 60. So it is a lot of work. um it is not that hard, but you do have to have the personality to do it, because you're going to have all kinds of stories. Everybody is always going to tell you the sob story about why they didn't pay rent, and you have to be able to discern when it's true and when it's just they are trying to take advantage of you. So it is hard, but it's not impossible. You have to have the personality.
Yeah, great advice. And are there some tips for somebody who's looking to get started with property management on their own? So you're essentially vertically integrated, and it's like a hot topic. People talk about it. Would you give some advice for those people?
Yeah, I definitely think that when you are doing your own management, you're going to have a lot of savings, right? Because you're going to be looking out for yourself. You're not going to be paying the extra fee to outsource stuff. So definitely going with self-management is going to be a great idea. I would say that if you're starting and you want to do your own management, first of all, do not introduce yourself as the owner. Introduce yourself from the beginning as the property manager, because a lot of times when people ask you for stuff that you don't want to do, you can always say, let me ask the office. And then you don't have to be the one saying no all the time, because you want them to like you and you want them to talk to you, but you don't want them to be, put you against the wall when they are asking you for something like, can I pay the rent on the 15th, or, can I get a discount? And so you are always able to be like, okay, let me ask if I can do that. So it's not you who is making the decision. And the same goes with applications. Like if you receive applications and you have multiple people and you don't want to be the one that they know that decided who goes and who didn't. I mean, you're going to look at the applications and evaluate that, but still you have to like let them know. And I don't want to be personally the one that said, you don't qualify. So I like to just be the office will handle the applications, and you will know in a few days. So that's one of the things. Introduce yourself as the property manager always, from the beginning. Um, Make sure that you set up systems from the beginning, like, so that your tenants know what to expect. And every time that you set something, you just write it, and you do the same for everybody, because that's really important that you do the same thing for everybody. Like you cannot, be treating one tenant one way and another one the other. So if you have standards, then there's no questions. This is what we do, and that's the rules, and that's how it's gonna be, right? So I think setting standards, and I've changed my lease so many times. So don't be afraid to adjust. Like set your standards, but you're always open to adjust. Like my lease has changed so many times based on experiences. I had somebody say, "Oh no, your lease didn't say that." Okay, the next person I added to my lease. Now the lease says that, and adjust with the experience that you start acquiring.
That is some awesome advice, Annette. Thank you. And do you have like an attorney that you work with on the leases, or do you do it yourself? How do you know how to write it? You know?
Um, I have, when I started, it was like a 3-page lease. And yes, I had it reviewed by an attorney. Now it's like an 11-page lease, which it's crazy. But, as you acquire property, also and if you don't you don't have the money to pay an attorney, um, if you are gonna do it seriously, you gotta do that. But if you're starting, you can always look at the previous leases and then look at the lease and then, you know, emulate that, and you can start with that, and then you add to it or deduct depending on what you want to do. When I started managing, it was only 3 pages. It was like 2 pages was the lease and then 1 page was the rules. Now I have like pet addendum and like all kinds of addendums for everything, because you want to be covered. You want to make sure that you have everything is covered. The rules used to be a page, now is like 2 pages. Then we have a management addendum, like what are they expected to do and what are we expected to do. So there's no question. And when there's any issues, I can be like, okay, refer to the lease, page number 3, item number 5, and it's very clear there. So like, for example, I had somebody call me at 7 a.m. I think it was Sunday or Saturday, and he forgot the keys and he wanted us to unlock the apartment. And I said, okay, no problem. I just want to remind you that there is a charge for that. It's like, okay, no problem. So we send the handyman, he unlocked the door, and $50 was charged to him, which I think is super reasonable, because if you call a locksmith, it's going to be 150 to $250. And then he's like, well, why am I being charged? And your lease says that um, you're going to change the keys as well. If I'm paying, I'm going to get the keys changed. And I was like, well, refer to your lease where it says either or, we're going to unlock the unit, or we're going to provide a new key. So it's either or, not both. So I was able to just direct him to the lease, and there was no more question about it. So it's important to have, to be updating your lease and like be clear of what to expect.
Great advice again. Oh man, and we could talk for hours. I have you mentioned systems. Do you use any, like, do you use AppFolio or something? What do you use for your property management software?
Yes, once I got into the 50 unit, I started, I was using apartments.com. If you're starting, apartments.com is a really good resource. You can have a free account and you can manage your properties and collect rent. But once you go into the large, you have enough units that you can go into a management software. There is multiple: Buildium, Appfolio, Door Loop, and many more. I went with Appfolio, which is, I think, probably the most expensive one, but I am very happy with it. There is a lot of things that I can do that are not possible with other software. The reports are amazing, and I love to run the reports. You can collect rent, you can collect deposits. It keeps everything organized. You can keep track of your assets. I mean, it's a very complete software. So I am really happy I moved to that. And also it has an app, so I am able to access all the information through my phone, which is awesome because I'm always on the go. And if somebody calls me, I'm like, okay, who is this person? I can open up the tenant. I used to know everybody by name, but once you have 80 people and, plus husbands or wives, then I'm like, okay, I know this face, but I don't know who this person is. So it's always good to have everything in your phone and easily accessible.
That's great. How do you have the time to like find new deals, and how do you source new deals?
Um, so new deals, uh, so I always, when I meet a wholesaler, a broker, I ask them to add me to their buyers list. Or anytime that somebody calls me to see if I want to sell my properties. I tell them I'm not selling, but I'm buying. What do you have? So um, so I've gotten properties from brokers. I've gotten properties from wholesalers. Initially, I was always buying on the MLS. Um, all kind of sources, like anything. Like if you are selling property, just add me to your list, and I get emails or I get text messages, and I'm constantly looking. And like one of the last deals that was presented to me was from somebody that called me to see if I wanted to sell, and I said no, but I'm buying. He saved my information, and when he had a deal that matched my criteria, he called me directly.
Cool. And what are you seeing right now for like, are you able to still push rents? Because recently we've been kind of flat. And are you charging rubs or how do you like what are you charging for those?
Yeah, so I don't do RABs per se, but I do have a charge for water. Let's say normally power is always divided. I have never had a property where power was combined, but for water, we just do a flat fee that is always below what a RAB would be. I just think it's easier for me to just have a flat amount, and it has worked for me very well. People don't complain about it, and people are expecting to pay it anyways, so it's been easy to do.
Have you ever had to evict anybody?
I had to evict, never, have never had to evict somebody, like to complete the process. I only We started the process with like two tenants and a property that we bought that we had to completely remodel. um but this was with a partner, and she was handling that part. But from the units that I was managing, I've never had to get to eviction. I do have, right now, actually, I have a tenant that every month he's late, and every month he gets a 3-day notice, and every month he pays late. I implemented a late fee that is per day, and that incentivizes people to pay on time. Because before I had a flat fee, and I think it was like $50 or $100, I can remember. And so by the fifth of the month, if they didn't pay, they were like, okay, whatever, I'm gonna pay whenever, because it's gonna be $50 no matter when I pay. So I changed that to make it like $20 a day instead. So if they pay by the fifth, they don't have to pay it, it's waived. But if they pay after the fifth, then it continues to grow. So it goes like 100, 120, 140. So when they see that money accruing, they are more willing to pay on time. So we've seen a decrease in people not paying rent on time, and everybody's paying on time now. And this person that is late every month, we're not going to renew. So that's already, because it's just a problem to continuously have to hassle them. But every time that we send a 3-day notice, there is a charge. So they know. I'm like, listen, I don't want to send another 3-day notice because there is a charge for it, because we have to take the time to write the notice, hand deliver it. It's just work for us. So we kind of have a system that I follow where, on the third of the month, we send a reminder to whoever didn't pay. On the fifth of the month, we remind them today is the last day to pay. And then on the sixth, they start paying the late fees. And then by the ninth, if they didn't pay, they get a 3-day notice delivered. So by doing this consistently, people know what to expect, and they know that they have to, they are gonna get charged. So on case by case, you know, if there is somebody that is going through a hardship, and they let us know before, ahead of time, we work with them. But when it's somebody that is just doing it constantly and every month, we just go with the late fees.
Oh, Annette, this is such a valuable conversation, and I know that my listeners are going to want to reach out to you, and I want to get them that information. I could literally sit here and talk to you forever, but I need to cut it. So let's go to my final question, and then we're going to get the listeners some form of contacting you. All right.
Okay.
Annette, let's imagine it was 100 years from now. Now you have great grandchildren, and they wanted to write a book about you. What would you want them to title this book?
Wow, that's a hard question. I've been thinking about it. Um, you know, I think for me, growing up with a single mom. My goal was always to be independent and not to, to be able to sustain myself by myself. And I have a wonderful marriage and I love my husband, but I always in the back of my mind was like, what if, this is not what would be? So I guess independent would be the name of the book.
You are certainly an independent, hardworking. You can do everything on your own. And I've noticed that. I noted that when we were, a team, and I was like, I can literally just leave her to do everything, and she's going to run a really good program. So you are living that, and you're embodying that. So thank you, Annette.
Thank you, Nico, for having me. It was such a pleasure to talk to you and share with your audience, a little bit about me.
Yeah, and they're going to want to reach out to you, Annette. So let's get them some form of contacting you.
Yeah, so if you're on Facebook, you can reach out to me by Anette Talie, and it's the same name probably on the podcast. My website is www.talieinvestments.com, and you can also find me on Instagram as Talie Investments.
Awesome. Annette, it has been such a pleasure catching up with you. We got to do it more often, and thank you so much for joining me today.
No problem. Thank you for having me. And if you're looking for another podcast, you can also listen to my podcast, Real Estate Deal Closers, and with Anette Talie. Thank you, Nico.
Thank you, Annette.
All right. Hey, Small Axe community. I would like to say thank you for listening to another episode of my podcast where we show you how to use your small axe to build a lasting empire. Now, if you liked what you heard, it would mean the world to me if you would subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, and write a review. Also, if you want to get in touch with me, go to my website at smalaxecommunities.com. Book a call with me. And until the next episode, keep sharpening those axes.